Welcome to this week's edition of the Nation's Capital Sports Show. I'm Kevin Jeter, along with Stephen Mangas, Vincent Charles, Afshin Banab, and Chris Jerry. Gentlemen, I feel like this first half of the show should be entitled Draft Day, because actually we're going to be addressing the draft, the NBA draft from the Wizards' perspective, and the NHL draft from the Washington Capitals' perspective. So let's start talking about the Washington Wizards. Afshin, the Wizards, of course, have the second pick, actually they pick in the second round, I should say. And they also extended the contract of Coach Randy Whitman to a multi-year contract.
Right, Randy Whitman got what is believed to be a 3-year, $9 million deal, with the third year being a team option. They have the 46th pick in this year's 2014 draft. So Ernie Grunfeld has a lot of options. There are players that he's got to re-sign. Marcin Gortat, Trevor Ariza. I don't think that they'll be able to sign both of those guys. You're talking about maybe $20 million in salary just for those two guys. I think Ariza would be the odd man out there. Kevin Serafin is another option. Does he want to keep him? And what are they going to do with that 46th pick? But the most important thing, I believe, is that with that second round pick, they don't have to get somebody who needs to come in and play right away. They just need to fill a big basic need, like kind of a swing man, somebody who could play a shooting guard or small forward, be able to create his own offense. So it'll be interesting to see. Grunfeld has a lot of options.
What are they going to do about the AARP team in Al Harrington? Chris?
I don't know. I think they'll bring some of the older fellows, more experienced veterans back. I'd like to see, personally, Gortat come back. Ariza had a great year, but I think at his age and probably what he's going to ask, I'm okay if they let him go. But I think they'll be okay with the draft. The thing about the 46th pick to end the draft, the issue is that you don't know who that's going to be. That's just kind of almost like, shooting fish in a barrel, because there's nothing really there that's going to necessarily help them. Maybe you'll get lucky. That's about it.
All right, let's talk in terms of what the Wizards need, in your humble opinion.
Well, in my humble opinion, it's really hard to decipher at this point. As we've stated, it depends so much on who comes back, who doesn't come back. There's only very few players that have guaranteed contracts coming back, but particularly in the draft for the Wizards, I would kind of look either a sustainable backup point guard that could be here for some years behind John Wall, or going with some depth in the front court as well, as far as center and power forward. Like we said, hard to tell who's going to even be there at that 46th pick, but I'll throw out some names as Russ Smith as a point guard out of Louisville, or potentially the power forward out of Florida, Patrick Young, yes, there we go. That's the big man.
The big fella.
Yeah.
That's it.
Definitely a backup point guard and somebody in the middle. Now they're looking at a guy from Greece, if I could say his name right. Thanasis Antetokounmpo. He's from Greece. He's 6'8". He could be somebody that could back up in the middle.
Hey, I give you kudos, man, for taking a stab at that name. That's something I would have never done. I would have actually looked at Afshin and said, hey, Afshin, what's the name of that? Hey, how do you say that?
That's right. But and there's also another guy from Spain, Tavares, that they're looking at. So Grunfeld does have a knack for looking overseas. Yeah. Jan Vesely?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Jan Vesely before the Finals MVP was taken.
Well, this is a good place for the Washington Wizards to be, because at least they're not trying to – they play good. So you're rewarded by playing good, and obviously you get the lower rungs of a draft pick. That's not a bad thing for the Washington Wizards, especially for these past couple of seasons. Let's bring our attention a little bit and talk about the NBA Finals. San Antonio Spurs over the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat lost, and the Spurs essentially swept them 4-1, which led LeBron James to say the following. I'm going to paraphrase this. Damn, those old guys can still play basketball.
Yeah, I thought, this is their 5th championship with Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich together. I thought that was a remarkable run by San Antonio, because I wasn't too sold on them. I was wondering how they would handle Miami, and getting a break in that very first game with the heat, with the air conditioning going out and the heat cramping up. But it was a remarkable performance by the Spurs in those last 3 games, especially to win each of their games, their 4 games, by 15 points or more. That's just an incredible thing over the Heat.
And will it be interesting to see as to whether or not Ginobili or Tim Duncan will come back, or even Tony Parker, Afshin?
Well, I think Parker will definitely be back. He's one of the best point guards in the league. Duncan, he's got to decide very soon if he wants to come back. And Ginobili, man, he's got that sweet shot. So if you're Popovich, you definitely want him to come back. And they put on a clinic against Miami, a passing clinic, a shooting clinic, how to play defense. But I don't want to diminish what Miami has done, too. 4 consecutive years in the NBA Finals where they won 2 championships. That's not something to hang your heads down on, you know?
Well, they potentially have some issues or things to concern themselves with because LeBron James, Bosh, and Dwayne Wade, they want to keep them, but they're going to become free agents, and that's going to kind of be their problem to handle. If Pat Riley can rally in the forces and get those guys to re-sign.
Yeah, those are certainly big stories, and I'm glad though that we first mentioned what an accomplishment the Spurs had, because a lot of the coverage around immediately went to those stories of the Miami Heat. What's next?
Right.
I mean, you look at the rundown, and it was story after story of the Heat, and it was, hey, come on, the Spurs just won the championship. But since we've covered the Spurs already, yeah, there's a lot of questions on where LeBron is going to go. Is he going to team up with Carmelo, or is he going to stick around and try and stay there with Wade and Bosh?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned Carmelo because they talked about Carmelo coming to Miami. So that'll be kind of interesting in that effect. Vincent, we're going to let you have the last word, my man.
It certainly will, Kevin, but we all know as LeBron goes, that's how Miami's going to go. One quick take on the Spurs. Great series. They really improved their rebounding from the first game. Defensively, they played a lot better. They cut down their turnovers. How about Kawhi Leonard, 22 years old, MVP, youngest MVP, I think, since
That's right.
Duncan in
That's
1999.
right. And we have a minute left, so I'm going to have to cut you short. You had the last word there. Sorry, my man. We want to remind everyone that you're watching the Nation's Capital Sports Show here at AIM via Comcast 69 and Fios 38. Very verbose. I like that, man. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the Washington Capitals. You're very welcome. And the NHL Draft. In regards to, they have the 13th pick overall. And the NFL and the NHL draft takes place a little bit after this broadcast. Well, actually, probably in a week and a half on June the 27th. What's it looking like, Stephen?
Well, the NHL draft is a little bit different since we just talked about the NBA draft. Obviously, the NHL, you're drafting younger players. You're looking more for development. It's not going to be anybody that's going to step in right away. Even though that 13th pick sounds kind of high, it's going to be normally around 2 years before you might see anything. Though I'll recap who the Capitals have picked before. Most recently, 4 years ago, was Evgeny Kuznetsov, so took him until this year to get here with the 26th pick. And in 2011, they traded their first-round choice for Troy Brouwer. 2012, they selected Philip Forsberg, who was also later traded. And then in the 16th, or at 11th, in the 16th pick of that draft, they picked Tom Wilson, who we saw get some time this year. And last year, Andrei Burakovsky, who I expect to make some noise in training camp, possibly be with Hershey this year.
I think they should get or look towards a defenseman like
agree.
the kid Honka with that 13th pick. I'm still mad about the Forsberg deal. They should have never traded Philip Forsberg for Martin Erat. But, you know, maybe a possible backup center for the second or third line, which they always seem to be lacking there. But I would go for a defenseman for sure, a really strong defensive defenseman.
Well, you know, as Stephen was saying, the one difference about the NHL draft, the NBA, is that you're picking younger players. You know what's happened to the Capitals in recent years is, for a few years there, Hershey really had the top team in the AHL, and now they've fallen, which kind of indicates that maybe in minor league really needs to get picked up. So I don't know who they picked. That's almost like best player available,
Right.
like they say in other sports. That's probably what the Capitals need.
Vincent.
Hershey, they're still with the Capitals. They reestablished that relationship, that contract with Hershey. Yeah, just want to let you know that. I'm wondering about the goalie situation, and I'll direct this to you, Stephen. Sure. Halleck, okay? They let Halleck go. Now, don't you think that's should be an emphasis to draft a goalie?
I think not necessarily at 13, maybe later on in the draft, because particularly at goalie, you're going to have a longer development there, and they are thin. Hershey's former goalie, David Leggio, who was behind Grubauer, he's going to be gone, so that's the spot that's missing right now. But Braden Holtby, they're going to move forward with him as a starter for sure, and hopefully the new coaching staff can make that work. But I will throw out some names as potential draft to go along with the strong defenseman, as we've mentioned. Hayden Fleury, if he is available, would probably be absolutely the best option. He's a big NHL-sized kid at 6'3", and nearly 205 pounds already, and he had a great World Junior Championship for Canada, as well as his teammate Travis Sanheim, if Hayden Fleury's not available.
Yeah, I think back to the point about Braden Holtby, I think he is the goalie of the future for the Washington Capitals. I think he was used incorrectly this past year, Vincent. 2 years ago was the way he wanted to be. He was comfortable with how Dale Hunter actually let him play. And Adam Oates changed that around. And I think that going forward, you'll see him go back to the way he was 2 years ago, where he doesn't have to go out, leave the net as much as he did, and let him play in his comfort zone. I think Braden Holtby is the guy for the Washington Capitals.
All right, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say to you, Afshin, because I didn't follow it as closely, but you said Adam Oates didn't let him do it. Well, wasn't Ole Kozik the goaltending coach?
That's true too. That's true too.
So,
but I tell you what, I think Adam Oates had a lot to do with the changes that were made. Even if Ole Kozik had made recommendations, I wonder how much control Ole Kozik really had with Braden Holtby. Now they got rid of Kozik too, so I don't know. But yeah, that's a good point you bring up, Chris.
And Stephen, we're going to let you have the last word, my man.
Yeah, I'll stick with the goalie point there, because we've talked about it before and saying that was definitely one of the problems last year. Pretty much led us needing to go grab Halak, but hopefully we do let him play more aggressive. That's the way he wants to be. He really likes to come out, and last year is where they sat him back and sent him in there. But 13th pick should be interesting. Certainly some good value could come from there. I'll finish it off with saying a couple recent Stanley Cup guys have been picked around there. So in 2003, Dustin Brown was picked at number 13. Seabrook was picked 14th in that same year, and Anze Kopitar was picked in as the 11th pick in 2005. So once again, long time before they really develop into that full point, but you can get some good talent there.
All right, you're going to have the last word on that, and we want to let everyone know that this is the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. Vincent Charles, Stephen Mangas, Chris Jerry, Afshin Banab. Coming up after the jump or break, we're going to be talking baseball, Washington Nationals, and of course the College World Series and a little World Cup. And we want to let you know that you can listen to the Nation's Capital Sports Show on TuneIn.com. This is the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. I'm Kevin Judah, hanging out with Afshin Banab, Vincent Charles, Stephen Mangas, and Chris Jerry. Gentlemen, let's continue our conversation and talking about what we enjoy talking about, sports. But before we get to that, we want you to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tncss.com. So let's begin to talk about baseball, Major League Baseball. Sad on the passing of left fielder Tony Gwynn, Mr. Padre, 20 years in the major leagues, and tell you, what a hitter, Afshin.
Yeah, over 3,000 hits, 3,100 hits and some change, a .332 batting average, one of the best all time. But not only was he a remarkable baseball player, but he was amazing off the field as well. He was very humble, very gracious, never turned away an autograph. You know, you compare him to some of the other great hitters, like Ted Williams was not humble when he played. He was not gracious. He was quite egotistical from all the stories I've always heard. But Tony Gwynn was a gentleman off the field, and to me, in my mind, for the guy that I saw play a lot, I thought he was probably one of the top 3 baseball hitters of all time.
Vincent.
Tony Gwynn was a joy to watch and was a joy to follow. What a work ethic, and the man really loved baseball. His Gold Glove, he was an all-star, I think about 15 times, 5 batting titles. He will go down as one of the best hitters in baseball.
One of the stories that I've heard, and there were a lot of good Tony Gwynn stories, and one of them was that he had worked with Steven Strasburg of the Nationals from San Diego State. And when Steven Strasburg made his debut, he was there after undergoing 14 hours of cancer surgery. And he was there in spirit. He was there rooting for him. Chris.
The thing that I'll remember most about Tony Gwynn, first of all, everybody, it's been consensus. Everybody says he was a great guy. The thing I remember about him the most, though, is this guy's from San Diego, and that's the most country black guy I could ever think of, just because of the way he talked. You know, he'd always have that twang and had that little tobacco in his jaw, you know, but man, what a great hitter. He could spray the ball all over the place. And the thing that a lot of us as sports fans complain about so much, and we really appreciate about him, he stayed in one place. Grew up in San Diego, played for the Padres, and when he ended his pro career playing professional baseball, he went to his alma mater, San Diego State, and coached there for 10 years.
That's right. For the Aztecs, he started out playing basketball, 2 sports,
Yeah.
and that was pretty amazing. He
Yeah.
couldn't palm the ball, but he was one heck of a guard. You know, so
Yeah, he was.
You got to love that about him, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, staying in one place 20 years kind of locally reminds you of a guy like Darryl Green. No character questions, nothing like that. Definitely a good guy. And as we know, the great go too young, so sad to see Tony Gwynn leave us.
That's right. And one final thought. Tony Gwynn started the video type of stuff. He would take his video stuff on the road. He did this at a time when no one else did this in sports. Would bring his VCR, would bring his VHS player or Betamax at the time, and would watch himself hit and would actually stress the importance of hitting. I mean, he was a student of the game, and for all intents and purposes. And Tony Gwynn, of course, he will be missed and not forgotten. Let's turn our attention over to the Washington Nationals. Vincent, the startup saying that Bryce Harper is starting his rehab stint for Potomac, right? And there's the return, or actually Wilson Ramos.
Wilson
Ramos is another one.
He's another one. And so set this up for us, Vincent.
Slowly, the Nationals, Kevin, are getting back to full strength. Ramos is due back June 26th. He's still in rehab. And Bryce Harper, starting out down at Potomac, like you said, he's going to play 8 or 9 games down there, work on his swing, his timing, and he should be back by July the 1st. The Nationals, they're currently in first place. But let me tell you guys, it is a race. The Marlins are still in it. They're right there on the heels of the Braves and the Nationals. Don't forget, the Mets are still in it, and believe it or not, the Phillies are still in it. So it is a horse race right now. The Nationals, when they have everybody back, they are going to have a formidable lineup, especially offensively. The pitchers are doing well. Fister may be an all-star. Bullpen still doing very well. Soriano, 17 saves. The young guy, Aaron Barrett, has been quite a surprise, but he did have a good spring.
And those are good things to bring up. And let's talk about something which you talked about, Chris, in our last broadcast, and that was they have to win the games that they're supposed to. And they have been doing that. And they won against Atlanta, which has been a nemesis for the Nationals as well as the Cardinals.
Well, the latest 4-game series, it didn't start out that way because they
That's right.
lost the first 2, but they bounced back to win the last 2. So, yeah, it's no question. That's what they have to do. They've got some games coming up with the Brewers and the Cubs, and they just need to win the games and beat the teams that they're supposed to beat because, you know, as Vincent mentioned, everything is kind of close right now. You know, one thing about the injury issue is I heard a little factoid that once the 2 guys get back with Bryce getting back and Ramos getting back, if everybody stays healthy, that'll be the first time all year that all of the players coming out of camp are expected to be healthy on the team for the first time this year.
Afshin, Ryan Zimmerman is, I've heard rumblings in terms of when Bryce Harper returns, Ryan Zimmerman will go back to third base.
It's highly possible, but with the way Anthony Rendon is playing right now, I can't see Rendon being pushed to the bench. I think it's almost impossible that Matt Williams would do such a thing. He's going to have to work his magic and find playing time for all these guys. LaRoche will get a spell here. Zimmerman might go back to first. Rendon obviously could get a spell. He'll be back to his. Zimmerman could be back at third base. He'll play a little bit of the outfield. Span could get a spell, and you might move Harper to center and keep Zimmerman at left field. So he's going to have to work his magic on this stuff, but I can't see him benching Rendon at all.
I heard it in the press conference where Coach Matt Williams alluded to that. Let's hope that he will change his mind and work things out as you alluded to. Stephen.
Well, as we've said, we haven't had everybody healthy the whole time so far, so I would like to see a rotation, certainly not keep one of them on the bench or look at shipping anybody away. I think it's great that Zimmerman now is going to be able to potentially play 3 different positions. Rendon, I would like to see stay at third for the most part. Chris, you talked about winning the games that we should and everything like that. the surprise was the Giant series where they won 3 out of 4, but then they happened to lose the Cardinal series right after that. So a little back and forth with them, of course, but.
So does that mean we're going to beat the Brewers and then get swept by the Cubs?
I hope not.
And you have to give kudos to the pitching, to the bullpen
Absolutely.
pitching.
Williams, getting back to Zimmerman.
Let's talk a little bit about the pitching first, giving kudos to them.
Okay, I did mention that the bullpen, okay, has really done well, especially Soriano. And as far as the pitching, the starting pitchers, Strasburg, Pfister especially, Tanner Roark, Gio Gonzalez is back. So the Nationals, they're pretty well set as far as the pitching right now. And they're doing well.
I know you said that earlier, but I just wanted you to expand on it and stuff.
Okay.
Somewhere along there, when you were going about that, I was like, okay, he did say something about the pitching. Let's let Afshin have the last word on this.
Well, it's going to be a good run before the All-Star break. Now, Stephen, you mentioned something about not getting rid of anyone. Mm-hmm. They may have to eventually before the All-Star break or before the trade deadline, July 23rd. And you know, I had a kid around with Vincent about this, but I'm not kidding right now. One of those guys may have to go, Espinoza or Desmond, if you want to keep everybody happy. And you know, there are some teams that are looking for a good shortstop or a good second baseman. Detroit Tigers come to mind right off the bat. They may have to eventually do that.
All right.
I don't know.
I have the last word on that, sir. Let's talk about the College World Series. And being a radio man, I'm going to read directly from my paper, so excuse me. Name something that our Chris Jury and the Nationals' Ryan Zimmerman have in common. Well, it's their love for all things Virginia Cavalier. And of course, Ryan Zimmerman is his alma mater is UVA, and the Who's, of course, are making great headway in the College World Series. Afshin.
Yeah, what a great year they've had, 52-14. And they have made strides in the College World Series. They're now in the championship this year. So the first time that they've ever been, I think only one ACC team has ever won the College World Series. They've been there 7 or 8 times, different teams. But congratulations, my friend.
Yeah, that one team, the one team that wins back in the 50s, that was Wake Forest. But,
yeah.
you know, this is working out really well for Virginia. They'll play Vanderbilt in the best-of-3 series for the championship. And what really has worked in Virginia's favor is they've got one of the best pitching staffs in the country in college baseball, combined with the fact that, as people have found out, the TD Ameritrade Stadium out there in Omaha where they're playing is giving up no home runs. So it is a pitcher's park. So this is absolutely helping them that their pitchers are so good.
You talk about some of those pitchers, Nathan Kirby, Brandon Waddell. Those guys have pitched. Their ERA is astounding. I don't think it's a record yet. It depends on what happens in the World Series, but 0.55 ERA right now through all these games. That's absolutely amazing what they've done.
And I'm also going to add in Lewicki and Howard coming out of both.
Right. Lewicki's doing a great job, too. He's got like his ERA is under 2. And he's pitched phenomenal as well. And they got some good hitters. Pappy is a
Mike
great hitter,
Pappy.
and Cogswell, who he sets the table for Pappy. I mean, they have their own Big Papi, right? But
Yeah.
they've done a really good job at Virginia, and I'm very happy for them. And they're, you know, kind of a semi-local team, so it's always good to see that.
Go
I'm happy
Hoos.
for you.
That's right. Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for that good piece. I enjoyed that. If you want to get in contact with the Nation's Capital Sports Show, you can do that simply by emailing us at info@tncss.net. All right, let's talk a little bit about the World Cup. And that's going to be interesting because we're going to find out where the U.S. stands. And, of course, the World Cup hasn't had its share of problems, or has its share of problems. There was a controversial goal in the Honduras and France game, and that involved some scoring technology. And here to start off this conversation and talking about the World Cup is our very own Chris Jury.
Well, just to get the scoring technology, the one thing that's good about it is it's worked so far. You know, before they never had this, now it's worked. But to just pass that aside, you know, I'm excited about the excitement in the United States about soccer and the U.S. team. Now, as we tape this show, the game is going on against Portugal, and all of a sudden, somewhere in the pubs and the houses around, things are not so good. I'll just leave it right there at this point. But I think the United States, you know, they have a good chance to advance to the next round. It looks like it may come down to the Germany game to ensure that because, again, as we tape this, the game is currently going on. They needed a win today in order to to advance to the next round. But that doesn't look so good right now.
And did the Ghana game when they tied, the Ghana played against, when they tied against Germany, that didn't do anything to help the U.S. case out, did it?
Well, it didn't so much help the U.S. case out. What it did is it helped Portugal. It really inspired Portugal, because then Portugal now knows that, hey, if we get 2 wins, we go to the next round. You know, had Germany won that game, then Portugal would have kind of figured, well, we got to beat the U.S. and hope the U.S. doesn't get a draw. Now, you know, they're in a position where everybody came in. So nobody of the 4 countries, nobody clinched, it looks like. It looks like that's the way it's going to go to the last day of group play.
Wow, you guys can just jump in.
Well, I'll shift gears a little bit and go, how about the shock of the teams in Europe and not advancing? Many of them, I believe England, Italy, Spain, faltering, not doing so well. And then you look at South America, you know, in the continent where the World Cup's being played, and you've got some surprises coming out of there as well.
Yeah, England and Spain definitely are. Italy still has a chance. What's interesting is in the Americas, there's always been a South American team that's won.
right.
There's never been a European team won when it's held in the Western Hemisphere. So we'll see this year if that continues, that trend.
Ashley.
Yeah, I think if you want to really see something, you want to see the fans down in South America go crazy, you look for 2 possibilities. One is Brazil and Argentina, and I'm not sure where the group play falls, or the brackets will fall in line there, or Brazil and the mother country, Portugal. Can you imagine if you saw Brazil against either one of those 2 teams in a World Cup final? That would be pandemonium. But I'm glad, you know, the U.S. has done well. The last couple World Cups, they were ousted by Ghana, but here they are again. And, you know, at some point, Chris, Stephen, Vincent, Kevin, they've got to move on. You've got to find that push, maybe 4 years from now, or even 8 years from now, but at some point they've got to really make headway in the world soccer community. Don't you agree?
Well, the one thing before we get out of here that I do want to say, hopefully the U.S. can advance, but I think the big victor out of all of this so far is the region which we represent, and that's CONCACAF, because you've got Costa Rica that's going to advance. It looks like Mexico's got a good chance to go. It looks like the United States, they still have a good chance to go. So that's 3 of the 4 countries advancing. Meanwhile, the African nations are really disappointing, and we've had, again, as we mentioned at the top, England and Spain, 2 of the big names in world soccer, already out of it.
Wow. Let's get Vincent. You probably have 10 seconds, Vincent, real quick.
I was really surprised to see Spain out of it so quickly. There are a lot of teams in it still before this thing shakes out. The U.S. definitely has a chance against Portugal. If they should advance with a win, Germany's going to certainly be tough.
Well, thank you very much. I like that, man. You timed it just right. Wow, I like that when things go very smooth. All right. Speaking of smooth, we have a whole host of people that help us out here. But actually, before we get to that, you can check out the Nation's Capital Sports Show on our webpage at tncss.net. Man, it's 30 minutes just like that.
Just like that.
It's been an enjoyable one, Afshin, and it all starts and begins with our executive producer and hero, Devin Gallagher.
Yes, he is our hero. Devin Gallagher and Kevin Sampson, and our director, of course, Charles Smith, technical director, Dario Beguena, graphics, Kimberly Phillip, camera, Misty Sweet, Craig Syfax, Bill Weisner, audio, Patrick McCleary, floor manager, Curtis Balmer, and I have it written down because I just don't want to forget anybody, and I hope I didn't, but a big, big thank you to all of you ladies and gentlemen out there who help us in the Nation's Capital Sports Show.
And you forgot to mention, when can folks check out the Nation's Capital Sports
You
Show?
can check it out Sundays at 3 p.m., Mondays at 9:30 a.m., and Fridays at 9:30 p.m.
And you can check us out on our YouTube page, too. So make sure you check us out on YouTube at thenationscapitalsportshow.com. For the entire cast and for my good friends and colleagues in Vincent Charles, Stephen Mangas, Afshin Banab, and Chris Jury, I'm Kevin Jeter. We thank you for watching the Nation's Capital Sports Show. We thank you for listening to the Nation's Capital Sports Show. Go out and have yourself a great sporting day and a great sporting week. And this is the Nation's Capital Sports Show, where it's most definitely on. Take care.